Hey, 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 soul sister. We're back for another episode. And I've got Tamara Zoner in the house, the happiness trainer. Yay! So good to have you here, sister. So good to have you here. I love your energy. I love how you walk your talk. I can't wait for this time with you to share your wisdom with my tribe.
Yay! I'm so happy to be here. I feel exactly the same about you. And I'm so excited to see what comes up in this conversation.
I know. It's always so like we have like this idea of what we're going to talk about. And it's like, okay, happiness and how do we manifest it and how do we work it? It's like, and then there's you and me having a conversation. So I'm thrilled. So let me let them know a little bit about you. I let the cat out of the bag saying you were a happiness trainer. They're probably going, what the heck is a happiness trainer? We will get there. Mm-hmm. She's also an award-winning keynote speaker, and she's on a mission to create greater happiness in the world by educating individuals and groups on practical happiness. After leaving a 15-year abusive marriage, Tamara rebuilt her life and her confidence using the same skills she now teaches others. Once miserable, and my God, I know you are so not that now. Once miserable, Tamara is now one of the happiest people she knows, and I would agree. She works with students of all ages to teach them the actions and habits of happiness so that they can lower stress and increase joy. A show, not tell single mom to 3 awesome teenagers and karaoke enthusiast, Tamara demonstrates daily how to create a life you love. Yes. Yes. Because at the end of the day, the women listening to this podcast, Tamara, whether they're in a relationship or they're just started dating or they're about to date or they just don't even know where to start, happiness is what it's about. In my opinion, like happiness and love, they're like hands in hand, they're like buddies, and I love that you mentioned that there are habits and actions about happiness. And so I'm thrilled to dive in. I would love to actually just go right to the, how does the relationship with someone's self, their own self, translate into having happiness in their love life or when they're out there dating? How can you connect the dots with that?
You can't disconnect the dots with that.
Boom, baby. There you
go. Those are so linked because, we cannot show up fully in a relationship with someone else if we're not showing up fully in our relationship with ourselves. And if we're going into dating and love relationships, expecting someone to complete a part of us that is missing, that is a need that is never going to be met by anybody else. So I often, when I work with my clients, and I end up working with a lot of people fresh out of relationships, not always, but often. And I'll say, okay, so we're like a cake, right? We're like a cake and we want to be fully baked. You have every ingredient within you that you need for the cake. Now, a relationship externally is icing. You don't need it for the cake, but boy, does it make it sweeter. And that's what it's like, right? You're a fully baked cake. Everything you need is here. And icing a partner makes it so much sweeter. And if we forget the eggs, the cake's not going to work, right? And the icing's not going to stick. And so we have to make sure that we meet our own needs, that we practice the tools of happiness and self-love so that we can come into a relationship whole and full. And then 2 whole people get to function together, not 2 people who can't figure out and are hoping someone else can figure it out for them.
So well said. And I love that you're like saying we have all the ingredients. The thing is, sometimes we don't realize we have all the ingredients. And, that's my work, the shadow work. It's like, oh, I have eggs, but where are they?
Right. You have them. You just might not know where to find them.
Right. Where did they go? And, where's the baking soda? Like, oh yeah, right. Somewhere along the way, I lost access to it. Somewhere along the way, I'm not nice to myself, or I talk poorly to myself, or I don't speak up for myself. So with this metaphor of you have all the ingredients to bake the most amazing cake, what are some of the tools that you actually offer to people to help them, the actions and the tools to actually tap into all the ingredients? Because if they're there, but they're still looking outside themselves, we know what's going to happen.
Right. So I always start with helping clients get clear on what they want their lives to look and feel like. If we don't know what kind of cake we're baking, then how the heck are we going to do it? So we put a recipe in place to just go on with this metaphor, and and we get as clear as we can in the beginning stages as to how we want to feel in our lives, what we want to be doing, what kind of people we want to be surrounded with, and how we want to feel about ourselves. Do I want to wake up confident and happy each day? Maybe I do. Do I want to work in a field that lifts me up and lights me up with a great team? Maybe I do. Do I want a partner who supports me and who's willing to have courageous conversations with me? We put these things on paper, and then I teach them how to align their life with those things so that every day they get a little bit more of that experience into their lives. And then it's the skills, Junie. We aren't all taught skills around
Really?
happiness.
No.
You might
We
be
haven't been
surprised.
taught how to have healthy relationships with ourselves, but like, wow.
I know our parents did the best they could, and a lot of it was shame. And so we start with a foundation for happiness with taking personal responsibility for our own happiness and not setting the expectation for others. And this is a key ingredient in the relationship with a partner, potentially, is not expecting them to make you happy, because that won't work. And that is a burden that not one of us can handle in life. But we can for ourselves. So we set a foundation of taking responsibility for our happiness and recognizing that that doesn't mean that you're at fault if you're not happy. It just means that there are solutions and different actions you can take to create greater happiness and to put your attention on some solutions for scenarios where you're not happy and take action to correct those. Instead of hoping that the world will change around you, we start some internal changes, and then we move into the mind. And a lot of people also don't even know how the brain works. We just haven't been taught this. So to know that we have a natural negativity bias and to not take that personally and to not feel guilty about it or do more self-blame and shame is very helpful to just learn, hey, here's how our brain works. And here's what we can do to start to repattern our thinking. Yeah. And our thinking is our self-talk. So the way that we speak to ourselves is the way that we're thinking to ourselves. And I love to pay attention to people's languages. I'm sure you do in shadow work, because it tells us so much about a person's belief system and what they think about themselves. Yeah. And it gives so many clues into the work that really needs to be done. So we start in those two areas, and then it builds. There are 7 main areas of happiness that I work with, and we cover them all. And we strengthen, just like muscles, in our body, which our body is part of happiness too. But we work on building all of those muscles through building new habits, new ways of thinking, new ways of showing up, new ways of talking to people, new ways of creating boundaries in our relationships. And we can't do that unless we have built up some self-worth and we believe that we're deserving and worthy of love and healthy boundaries and good things in our lives.
Wow, you just laid down a lot. That was awesome. I want to get to negative bias in a moment, so don't let me forget that. With that said, you're talking about building muscles and really taking actions, and we use the metaphor of ingredients and, day-to-day conscious self-talk and how we're treating ourselves and things like that. And I just was starting to think how, it's like lifestyle, it doesn't change overnight. I want to take the shame off of everybody that's kind of going, oh, I'm putting all these things into action. And oh, now I'm feeling like shit again. It's like, whoa, what did I do wrong? It's like, we are bumping up against some weak muscles or muscles that have not been taught how to function at all. And that it does take time to work these new muscles by getting really clear about these pieces to your particular recipe. So with that said, negative bias, because we are bumping up against the brain stuff as a human being called negative bias. Can you talk about that for a moment?
Absolutely. So this is a beautiful thing. It's one of the reasons we have evolved as human beings, as a society, as culture, by being aware of the dangers that existed so that we could avoid them. Now, we don't need that heavy negative bias like we used to when we were living in caves and fielding the elements. But the brain hasn't evolved as quickly as civilization has. And so what we've learned also is that we have neuroplasticity. So the brain can change, and we can actually take the negativity bias, Rick Hansen calls it the Velcro and Teflon syndrome, where we Velcro the negative, it sticks right to us. We can't shake it off, but we Teflon the positive and it slides right off of us. But what we've learned about happier people is that we reverse this bias. And so with practice, with baby steps, with exercises, we practice Tefloning the negative and Velcroing the positive. And so we want to start to look for positive things in our lives. There's been so many studies on gratitude and the impact that it can make. It's not just changing your experience, it's changing the neural pathways in your brain, so that instead of having that negativity bias, you now look for what's good in your life. And therefore you notice the good stuff more often, because whatever we look for is what we're seeing. So we want to start to look for what's going right in our lives. And I'll give you guys a clue on a great phrase, a great question to ask instead of that old question that most people ignore nowadays. How are you? How are you, Junie?
Fine. How are you?
Yeah, fine. How are you? Or keep walking. Don't even. Instead, I like to teach people to ask, what's good with you today? Hey, what's good with you? And suddenly people are stopping and going, whoa, well, that's different. So now I'm going to pay attention. And second, oh, let me think about that. And the brain automatically starts to look for something. And at first we might give the nots. Well, I'm not sick. I'm not this or that. But with time and attention and practice, we start to go, oh, well, I feel good today. I'm healthy. I got a great hug from my son. The sun is shining, and then we spiral up in all the good things that are in our lives. And the more that we do it, the easier it gets. And voila, our brain now has this positivity bias instead of a negative bias.
Ah, that was so good. That was so good. And it is like epidemic. If you asked what's good, well, it's not, I mean, even like when I start with new people that, I have a conversation with them and I'm like, hey, what is it you're wanting in relationship? Well, I don't want this and I don't want this and I don't want this. And it's like, it's awesome. It's good information. It's just, as we know, if we're doing the universe, the subconscious realm, all of that realm of law of attraction, the universe is going to go, oh, let's give her more of what she just said she doesn't want, because that's what it's hearing, versus,
It's just what
is it we desire and what's positive. It's a muscle and an awareness, as you said.
Yes.
Be aware.
Very important. The brain will do what you tell it to do. And so but it likes the action part of it, right? It likes the imagery part of it. And so if I say, don't think of a purple tree, the first thing that comes to mind is a purple tree. Yeah. And with dogs or puppies and kids alike, if we say, don't run, what they hear is run. Yeah. We don't hear the negative, even though we fixate on it. Yeah. So we have to say, walk, think of what you want, not on what you don't want.
Yeah. And that's that again, consciousness and a retraining and something that we haven't been taught. So here's a question. All right. What if you're surrounded by negative people, but you're trying to be more positive? What if you just keep finding that all the people around you are just not working that muscle? What do you do when that happens?
This can be one of the biggest challenges, because relationships are part of the 7 main areas of happiness. And many of us, especially women, have been raised to put others before ourselves. And we sacrifice our own needs and desires for the comfort of others. And so one of the areas this area where we practice is about, and there's a buildup here, right? First, we have to get to the point where we believe that we're worthy of these boundaries, but we get to that point and we start to then practice. Again, it's all a practice. I call happiness a practice. And we start to create clear boundaries, and then we start to practice setting them with the people that are in our lives. Because a lot of us have family, and we might have a very negative family member who's consistently complaining. And so I will teach people I'll give people actual phrases to use.
Yeah.
Right. So if you know that negative Nancy is going to be calling you up because she does, and you're like, oh no, she's just going to tell me all the horrors of the world in her life, then you get to practice saying this. Hey, Nancy, it sounds like you have a lot going on. We have two options here. One, we can say, I have just 5 minutes for you today, so get it off your chest. I'm here to listen. And then 5 minutes is done, and you say, okay, hope that helped. Love you. Bye. Second is, maybe we get a little stronger in this muscle. I've heard you talk about this a lot, and I want you to know that I love you and I'm here to support you. And I'm wondering if you'd be open to looking at some solutions so that we can start to look at solutions instead. And I like to ask the question too, what do you need today? Do you need a shoulder or a solution? Because if you need a shoulder, I've got about 5 minutes, because we've talked about this many times. If you're interested in a solution and maybe creating some change in your life, then I'd love to be here for you with that.
I love that. I love how direct it is. I love that there's love there. It's like, I'm here for you. I'm here for you up to a point. I love you. I'm with you. How can I support you?
And I'm here for me. And I love me.
And there's a boundary set here.
Yeah, the underlying theme in there is that I love you and I love me.
Yeah.
And that's how I'm going to show up today.
Yeah. Yeah. So, we're talking about happiness and positivity. And here's this woman who's dating. And as we know, the dating realm can knock us around a little bit. And sometimes it can feel like a shit show. And so, what might you offer to this woman who might be in the negative place because, awful dates are happening, awful conversations are happening, people are ghosting, disappearing, scamming. I mean, let me just start by saying there's so many great guys out there, and there's really great opportunity for love. That said, how can you support the woman that's kind of going, yeah, it's really hard to stay positive and I just want to throw in the towel? How do they stay on the beam?
Good question, Junie. Good question. This one is challenging because it requires us to really take a look at ourselves and to be willing to get curious and honest and uncomfortable with ourselves and dive into, what do you really believe about men? What do you really believe about relationships? What do you really believe in your heart of hearts? Not what you want to believe or want to think, but what do you really believe about relationships? Because again, it goes back to that subconscious mind and our patterns. We're going to get what we're looking for and what we believe is possible for us. And so in my own experience, I had to really look at, gosh, why do I keep dating the emotionally unavailable? Why do I keep dating guys who aren't willing to go and have these deep conversations with me? Because what I figured out when I was willing to dig in is that I was actually terrified of having a relationship. I didn't believe that relationships really worked. Because even though my parents have been married for 58 years, I grew up watching them fight about everything. And it didn't feel like a safe place. So relationships weren't safe. But if I kept dating unavailable men, then I was out there doing the thing, but I was still safe because it wouldn't happen. So it takes a lot of courage and a willingness to look at, what are my repeating patterns? What do I really believe? And what am I willing to change?
Ah, so good. Honesty. We need to drop into that honest place and look at our side of the street. Absolutely. Because, it's that classic, what's the common denominator, right?
Yes.
Like,
It's us.
like, oh, why do I keep doing this?
Right? Why is every environment so horrible? I'm
Yeah.
the one showing up. And what am I looking for? That's what I'm
Yeah,
getting.
how am I attracting this? How am I allowing this again and again and again? And that's
Yeah.
one of the things I've noticed as I've moved through my relationships and I've experienced next level love and I've had beautiful partnerships. And as I continue to move to the next level for me, I see I'm cutting much quicker. I'm honing in, like fine tuning much faster. Doesn't mean that there aren't moments of, oh my God, like I really thought there was potential there, but whoo, I must have missed that little golden nugget that he gave me last week, like, oh yeah, if I look back, yeah, I could have like honed in on that. Bottom line is I know my muscles are much more aligned with who I am and they're stronger and clearer. With that said, yeah, we need to, I have my mentors and my colleagues and my mirrors that people put up,
Yes.
because we all have our blind spots. That's why I love doing the work I do, because
Right.
I love helping people with their blind spots. And
Yes.
you are helping people have a better relationship with their hearts and happiness. And that is totally like, if you can't, like you said, if you can't be full and be whole, how the heck are you going to have a healthy relationship?
Exactly.
If, all the expectations, it's going to be such a letdown.
Yeah. Yeah. And then when you're in that and you're recognizing that, ooh, I've held on to this one too long, it's really not for me, to practice that self-forgiveness piece and go back to having compassion for yourself. So don't beat yourself up for repeating a pattern, because that won't help you break that pattern or learn from it. Just cut the ties, forgive yourself, and practice learning from it and being willing to be courageously looking at yourself and that self-awareness, and then courageously looking at whatever red flags might come up, or be willing to take a chance on someone who might not fit your type.
Yeah. Yeah. I love that. And, you mentioned the beating yourself up. So here we are wanting to fill up our own cup and be happy. And yet a lot of us, in fact, every one of us can have that critical voice show up. So do you have any tips on how to begin that journey of not beating yourself up, but actually supporting yourself?
Yes, this is one of my favorite things to do. And it's almost exactly where we start with new clients, aside from that clarity piece, is week 1, just become more aware of your thoughts. Notice what you're saying to yourself. Notice if you drop something on the floor, if you tell yourself, oh, I'm so stupid, or I'm so clumsy, or oops, I dropped that. I'll pick it up now. Right? Notice that there's a big difference there. Most of us are in this, oh, I'm so dumb, I'm so clumsy. We call ourselves names. We speak to ourselves like we would never speak to someone we love. And you want to be someone you love. So that's our first step, awareness, and just noticing how you're talking to yourself. And then start to very lovingly and gently interrupt the pattern. Oops, caught myself. I did that. Let me rephrase it. So I'll invite people often. I'll say, I wonder if you could just rephrase that. And they know after, a few sessions with me, like they know what I'm asking for.
That's
lovingly talk to yourself, forgive yourself for that.
Yeah.
And then restate it. Oh, I just dropped the thing. It doesn't mean anything, but that it's on the floor and I get to pick it up.
Yeah. Yeah. Or silly me. Ha ha.
Yeah, ha.
Had a human moment.
Hey, we're human? Is that what you're telling me? I've had to learn that myself.
Yeah, so good. Years ago, I still remember, and it was years ago because I remember where I was living, and I don't know what I was saying, but my dear friend, she just stopped me midway. She took my arm and she said, can you stop talking to my friend June like that?
Nice.
And I just was like, oh, wow. I was just really raking myself over the coals. And I'm like, thank you. Thank you. Because I wouldn't have talked to a friend like that. I wouldn't have talked to my kid like that. I wouldn't have talked to anybody like that. But for me, rah, rah. So I love that you're sharing the awareness and that reframe. So good. So good. So I know that you have a juicy masterclass coming up. Can you share about that?
I do. I'm super excited about this one. It's Authentic Happiness, 3 Keys to Creating Greater Happiness from the Inside Out, where we really start this work on laying the foundation for authentic happiness, a lot of what we touched on today, and also tapping into what makes us feel alive, what lights our hearts on fire. Because at some point, especially if we've been burned in relationships, we can start to forget and shut down. And so we want to reignite that inner fire. And then we actually will practice feeling into our authentic whole body yeses and nos. So a little boundary feeling, like, when is that a boundary? When is that a yes? When is that a no? So that we can begin to trust ourselves, so that we can begin to practice that. So we're going to spend some time together doing those things and getting clear on what we want life to feel like. And it's going to be a lot of fun. And I always jam pack my classes with value because I want to give everything, but I just at this point, I have so much that the 2 hours won't cover it all, but it's a good start.
I hear you there. It's like, I always tell my clients in the first session, I'm like, this is my favorite session and my least favorite session. You know, it's so exciting to start and to like really start to chomp on, like, you know, the whole thing. Yeah. And then it's like, and we're going to have to take it bite by bite because that's the way it is. It's like, you know, so I'm excited about that. We're totally going to put that in the show notes so you can check out the masterclass. And I also know you have another special gift. You have the Pathway to Happiness Discovery Call as an extra bonus, because people that are listening, I'm not sure when you guys are, are going to be listening, you might be missing out on the masterclass. Maybe you could do both. Tell us about the Discovery Call. What's that?
Yes. So the Discovery Call is a free gift session for your listeners, Junie, because I love love and I love healthy love. And I want to gift this to your listeners to help them get on their path to happiness. So we're going to flesh out together in 45 minutes, give or take, flesh out what's blocking you now. Like I said earlier, I'll be listening to language so that I can lovingly point out to your listeners or whoever calls me and works with me to say, hey, here's what I'm hearing from you. And then we're going to chart out, like, what are your 3 action steps that you're going to put into place today? What are 3 tools and techniques or practices that you can start using today? Because these things can make rapid fire change. Rapid fire change. I have seen people feel like their lives have transformed in a week with one tool.
Not surprising.
So yeah, it's amazing. So we're going to get them on their pathway to happiness. And that is evergreen for your listeners. So whenever they are hearing this, that is available to them.
That's so beautiful. So beautiful. So thank you. Thank you for sharing your joy and happiness, because I know that you really walk your talk, and so many golden nuggets today. Thank you for spending some time with us. Really appreciate you, Tamara.
Thank you, Junie. I appreciate you.
All right, sister, that's our episode for today. Really take some time to go into your heart and check out your ingredients. Are they in check? How's your cake doing? And then look at these links and they'll be in the show notes to grab one of those sessions or pop into her masterclass. Just keep going, because your cake is important to cook. And if you want to have another cake to have a whole party with, you need to figure this out. You need to learn how to connect your own heart. And that's why I was so thrilled to offer this segment to you. And if you got something valuable out of this, please share this with another soul sister, because we want to spread the joy. That's what this is about. All right. Until we meet again. Mwah.